All right, now that you have finished your narrative, we are going to take the next step and we are going to just get right to it and get into the research paper. The research paper is going to take you the rest of the semester. Why? Because it's really big. But it won't seem that big because, like big things like an elephant, how would you eat an elephant? One bite at a time. So I'm going to give you the bites. The thing is, you need to take the bites in order and to get to where you need to go. But when I mean order, I mean I'm going to give you something and I need you to do that, and then the next thing, and I have it all set in place for a reason so that you can get to the finish line in what feels like a more digestible way versus, I have all these things to do, I have no help, I'm here for you. That being the case, when we talk about the question, you will probably be frustrated when you put up a question and I say, nope, I can Google that, we're not going to do that, but here's my suggestion. So, what I want you to recognize is that I am guiding you because I care and because I'm pushing you to do something bigger than what you're used to. Again, we think about research papers and I think about high school and we did stuff like how many oceans are there in the world, or is exercise good for you? Things that I could just Google if I wanted. And we don't want that. We want something bigger. We want something that applies to humanity in some way, shape, or form. We're asking a question because we want to find a solution. And that could be anything, but it needs to be big. And I'll explain that to you in a second. So when I say a Googleable or a question that I can Google, I'm talking about something like, do hummingbirds have feet? Obviously they do. But questions like that, or do dinosaurs have feathers? Or, is a healthy diet good for you? Is exercise good for you? These are things I could very easily Google an answer to. And I refuse because that does not give you the opportunity for research and expansion on an idea. I want something big to where you're like, how do I answer that? And then you find all the little pieces that help you answer it. So, in other words, you're going to have a very big question, and all your subtopics, we'll get to outline in a second, all your subtopics will be questions that answer this ultimately. So, let's kind of get to the bigger question. So, a bigger question, if we're going to say something along the lines of, I'm trying to think. Let me do something. Let me give you an actual example and kind of explain, because it's hard for me to take a little a little Google question and make it bigger. So I'm just going to give you the big questions right off the bat. So, can humanity come together to save ourselves from climate change? Okay. That's not something you can just easily Google because there's too much involved. What does all this mean? And so you need to break it into pieces. So first and foremost, you'd want to start out with like, let me explain to you what climate change is, so that we can recognize climate change. Here's our issue. How do we address it? All right. So there's one subtopic of a bigger question. Okay. And the next would be, looking at the history of humans coming together for an ultimate good. What can we say about that? So we can maybe either go through the past, or we can go to most recent situations and experiences in our current history within the last couple of years. When calamity hits, do we as humanity come together or do we tear apart? So the question would be, again, can humanity come together to save ourselves from climate change? What's climate change? What does our history look like? And then below that, maybe we need to go, okay, this is our past. This is what science says about the psychology of people coming together, and maybe we can address that. And then you see how you kind of keep adding to start answering that bigger question. As you go through an outline, you kind of start filling in the blanks, and maybe you might not know, but you kind of have a rough idea. You will not know the answer to this until you've done your rough draft and your second round of research. So I don't want you to do a question that you're like, I already know the answer to. Like if you're to say, can humanity come together to save ourselves from climate change? You're like, sure, or no. Well, you don't really know. You can guess, you can hypothesize, you can in your head think, well, based on current experiences, probably not. We'll probably eat ourselves alive before, nature does. But that might be maybe your guess, but you don't really know because you haven't done the research. And then as you go and do the research, you're like, actually, maybe we can come together. And this is how. And so the thing you want to look into is understanding, like, so if climate change comes from, say, mining the Amazon rainforest, and phones are a huge, huge proponent to the destruction of the Amazon, and if we know that, we can look at understanding, like, do we need that next phone? Is it that important to take that picture, that, that new picture we need? Probably not. What are we willing to give up to save ourselves? Can we come together as a collective and be willing to do that? That's the question that you're ultimately looking to answer. And that's where you're going to have to do some research. Like, okay, fine. Say we do come together and we can. What is it we need to do to save ourselves? And so that's what you would do. You would do that list. Like, here's climate change. These are what we would need to do to combat climate change. This is our history of coming together. This is the psychology behind it. Put it all together, and this would be your answer. All right. So, in other words, this is what I'm looking for, something bigger, and that's just one of many different questions. So, I've had students do questions on the education system and how we can fix it. I'm not saying no, you can't do that. You can totally do that, but it needs to be a very complex, how would I say, dissection of what does the education system look like now? What does it need and why? And that could be something that I think is brilliant. I think there's a lot of opportunity there. So if you see something that maybe, like for me, it would have been nice if they, gave me a class on taxes. But then at the same time, when I was in high school, was I going to pay attention? Probably not. So, what's the psychology of, students in high school paying attention? And, what's the ultimate effect? Will they actually pay attention to that? Do they think it matters? I don't know, you tell me. So if we're going to have that conversation, right, it's not just as simple as what's wrong with the education system and Googling it. We find out how can we fix it. All right, so there's going to be a lot of research you'd want to do in that. What parts of systematic racism can we tackle, and what are the possible impacts? So you would have to look at different types of systematic racism. Where do you see it? We know the impacts, but what can we do to change? Like, what are the things that we can do? Is it possible to change the system that's been in place for decades upon decades, that's, bled into where we're at now? Can we? I don't know. That's the question to ask. And then you would tell us the answer that you find in the end. What's another one? Can we love nature the way that we love God and country? That's a really big one. I've done that with class before. And I give all the research on all the different religions. And then, I ask students, can we love nature like we love, God and country? And you'd be surprised at the answers I get. And so that's a tough question to ask too, because it's all individual based, right? On your religion and what your religion says and all these things. So anyway, notice these questions are very big, but you can use smaller questions within it to give you an answer for the bigger question, okay? Anyway, I'm literally scratching the surface of all the possibilities. I'm not saying no to anything right now. I don't say no until I see your questions and then I go, we need to work on it. So just be ready to ask something big, and it's going to kind of hurt at first. Like, I don't even know where to start. So think of something big and kind of work with it. And what you're going to do is you're going to do some brainstorming. So in order to do some brainstorming, what I'm going to do is give you a really quick, there's some videos and there's a link in here, and I'm going to throw some things at you, and I want you to be able to take a look at them and go, oh, I could be willing to try some of that brainstorming because I've never done this before. I've never done something this big. So I might need some help, because what I want you to do is I want you to create 3 questions that you are going to bring to the discussion board, and I'm going to have you respond to your peers. So what we call that is the wall of fame. And the wall of fame is where all those questions that you're asking yourself, I want you to come up with 3 big ones, and you're probably not really sure where you're going with it. You don't know, but that's okay. You've got a general idea. Do not do just one word. Don't just put immigration. Don't do that. You would want, what's the question you're trying to ask? I don't know what that would be, but don't just do one word. Or appropriation. Like, what's the thing? So anyway, make sure that you are doing a full question. Even if you're not sure, you're like, is this good? Go to the Wall of Fame assignment, and it's going to show you how to do all of that. Okay, so you're going to post your 3 questions and then you're going to respond to all your peers. And the reason why I do that is because I want you to be able to see everyone else's ideas, and it's okay if yours change, but I want you to involve yourself with them so that you can ask them questions. Like maybe they have something really short and you're like, well, to me it looks like I could probably Google that. Can you do something bigger with it? And then you would say what maybe the suggestion might be that you would offer to your student or to your peers. So that's what I want you to do in the Wall of Fame. Again, I've got a video on that. I've got a walkthrough on that. You don't need to hear me say it twice, but I do want you to be cognizant of the fact that the Wall of Fame needs to have at least 3 of your topics, but they are going to be questions, okay? 3 questions that are going to have to do with your topic, and I have them here. Again, can humanity come together to save ourselves from climate change? And what's wrong with the United States education system and how can we fix it, right? Something big is what you're looking for. All right. Once we do that, I want you to also take a look at the final project and some different options that you can do. Don't be too overwhelmed. These are options. I always like to push you to the best of, any opportunity to try something bigger than, one option. I give you a couple different options. The final project itself will be at a very minimum 6 pages, and then you have your works cited page, but works cited page, that's going to be for a different day. What I want you to pay attention to this week is brainstorming. I want you to take a look at the outline video and how you outline your paper, because this is going to help you get your idea going. And then also take a look at source summaries, because source summaries are going to be that thing that help you find the answer. So obviously a source summary is as simple as it sounds. You find your source, you summarize what it is, and then you tell me why you chose it. How does it apply to your paper? Okay, I give you like long videos of describing how to do it in detail, and I give that to you there. That way you don't have to deal with it through the PlayPosit, but it is available for you, and I highly suggest taking a look at those. All right, MLA format. I am wildly particular about MLA format, and it's not just that it's MLA format. That's not really the whole thing. The point of MLA format in this class is for you to pay attention to details. Slow down, pay attention, and get yourself in order. I'm trying to give you some structure. So the narrative was open and wild and free, and we were just all over, and it was beautiful. And now I'm like, all right, shake it out. Now let's hone into some structure. So I'm giving you these 2 different ways, and this also helps you see who you are as a composer too. But I'm also giving you different ways of different types of structure. So again, when we got that brainstorming, we have free writing, breaking down the levels with the different topics. We're listing, we're bulleting. You could do different perspectives, cubing, similes, clustering, all these different things that I'm going to post in a video in a little bit. Just give me a second. And that's the thing that I want you to kind of give yourself practice in. Don't just sit there and go, I don't know. I can't think of anything. Well, have you given yourself a chance? Did you try the brainstorming activities? Give yourself the opportunity for possibilities. Okay. Anyway, there's videos that I'm going to throw in for relationships, for color coding, and all kinds of different things, so that you can really feel like, okay, you've given me plenty of things that I can use for this. Okay. Again, outline is very important. I will really want to make sure that you get comfortable in outlining. I will ask for a rough draft outline. Again, it doesn't have to be perfect, and you probably won't have all the answers, but I just want you to start with something so you can show yourself like, oh, I see an order. And the other reason why I do this is so that I can see where you're going, and I can ask questions and go, oh, well, what about this? What about that? Maybe here's some of this. In other words, I'm trying to guide you to the best of my abilities, but I can't guide you unless you do it. So these are all things that are coming up in the next couple weeks. I just want you to be aware of how to do them. All right. And then next, after you do your outline, you're going to do research, which is your source summaries. You're going to find sources that are going to back up your main points. And that's, pretty much the biggest part of this is that research and citing it correctly. I'm very particular on that. When I start grading your source summaries, what I do is I will go through it with a fine tooth comb. And if you do it right the first time, you won't have to really do anything. But if you're not doing it right, you're going to see a 0, but don't panic. I give you a chance to redeem yourself. But to save yourself time, if you do it right and you follow the template that I give you, you should be fine. Super easy. So anyway, this week you're going to be doing your Wall of Fame. But while you're doing your Wall of Fame, I also want you to consider looking out how to do an outline. Okay, so do your outline, and then start considering what kind of sources you are going to need. And by sources, I mean Butte College's online library. Okay, do not go to random sites. That's not what I want. For source summary number 1, I need you to go directly to the Butte College library, and I need you to go to the article section, and you can either go to JSTOR or EBSCO. You can look under the little letters. It'll give you an E or a J. I like JSTOR personally. That's one of my favorite places to go. You can totally go to EBSCO if you feel more comfortable. If you are not sure how to do that, I have a video for that as well. So some of you already might have the practice in this, so you're like, oh, I know what this is. If you're like, what are you talking about? Don't worry, I have a video for that too, okay? All right, so first and foremost, make sure you get that Wall of Fame done. And then I'm going to give you a bunch of videos to take a look at. You're going to have a little bit of a quiz just so that I can show that you watch this. Super easy. And then what I'm also going to do is, instead of having the very long outline video on this particular thing, I'm going to offer it under the readings. So I want to force you to do the outline, but at the same time, some of you might already know how to do it, and I don't want you to waste too much time watching this video if you've already seen it or done it. So please go to the outline video and take a look on how to do that. So that way you have a more comfortable understanding of what it is that I am looking for. Okay? All right, so I'm going to give you some videos. I'll see you in a little bit.